Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Let's get started with Word Nerd Wednesday. Now, after looking at Confusticatum to Bother last week, we're going to stick with The Hobbit for a bit longer as we look at a word that, well, I didn't know we needed to know more about. See, when Bilbo and Gollum are playing their deadly riddle game, Bilbo offers an easy riddle. 30 white horses on a red hill. First they champ, then they stamp, then they stand still. That was all he could think of to ask. The idea of eating was rather on his mind. It was rather an old one, too, and Gollum knew the answer as well as you do.
"Chestnuts! Chestnuts!" he hissed. "Teeth! Teeth, my precious! But we has only 6.
Now, later Bilbo asks another one that he thinks is too easy. A box without hinges, key, or lid, yet golden treasure inside is hid, he asked to gain time, until he could think of a really hard one. This he thought a dreadfully easy chestnut, though he had not asked it in the usual words. Now, chestnut is one of those words I thought I would never be confused about. I mean, after all, it's a nut. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, all that, right? Well, the word traces its roots to Greek kastaneia, which means both the nut and the tree that it comes from. Originally, it was thought to be named after either a place that's near the Black Sea in modern-day Turkey called Castanea, or Castania, which is located in Thessaly in modern Greece. Well, today, experts actually believe that both of those places were probably named for the tree and not the other way around. They also think the name was probably borrowed into Greek from some other language, and they point to an Armenian word, kask, for the nut and kaskeni for the tree, as evidence for that. Now, eventually, Greek castanea became Latin castanea, which became chastain in Old French, and eventually cheston in English. In the 1500s, the English gave the nut the redundant name of a cheston nut, but that eventually got shortened to chestnut. But that's the nut. And that's where I'm still confused, because when Gollum hisses, "Chestnuts, chestnuts," he's not talking about trees in Turkey or the nuts that fall from them in Greece. Gollum's use of the word doesn't shed a lot of light on its meaning, but Bilbo's narrative gives context. He thought it was a dreadfully easy chestnut. Okay, maybe a chestnut means a riddle or a puzzle of some kind. Well, not quite. As Douglas Anderson tells us in a note to this chapter in the annotated Hobbit, Gollum's usage of chestnut is slang meaning an old, well-known joke or tale, which this particular riddle is. But then that still leads to an obvious question. How did a word for a nut or tree become a word for an old, well-known saying? Well, the most common explanation for the slang sense of venerable joke or story actually dates to 1885. Now, 3 years after it started showing up in the vernacular, so 1888, American actor Joseph Jefferson explained in a magazine called Lippincott's Monthly Magazine that the phrase originated from an 1816 melodrama called The Broken Sword by somebody named William Diamond, where an oft-repeated story involving a chestnut tree features prominently in an exchange between two characters, Captain Xavier and Pablo.
"Let me see. It is exactly 6 years since, that peace being restored to Spain and my ship paid off, my kind brother offered me a snug hammock in the dwelling of my forefathers. I mounted a mule at Barcelona and trotted away from my native mountains. At the dawn of the 4th day's journey, I entered the wood of Colorus, when suddenly from the thick boughs of a cork tree, 'A chestnut, Captain, a chestnut!' 'Bah, you booby, I say a cork.' 'And I swear, a chestnut, Captain. This is the 27th time I have heard you relate this story, and you invariably said a chestnut till now.' 'Did I? Well, a chestnut be it then, but take your seat.'"
I apologize for the terribly done 1816 melodrama. See, it turns out, though, that Jefferson, the guy who's able to explain this, traced the connection through his cousin, William Warren, 1812 to 1888, who was known as the veteran comedian of Boston and who often played Pablo in the melodrama. Interestingly, then, this makes Tolkien's use of chestnut in this meaning another one of his anachronisms, like waistcoats or waistcoats, which are a 17th century invention, clarinets for the dwarves, an 18th century invention, the reference to an express train, and the mechanical clock on the mantle, which is 16th century for this small of a piece. Now, of course, you're not likely to catch this one as an anachronism unless you're a philologist or an aficionado of early 19th century melodramas, or somebody who listens to today's Tolkien Times. And folks, that is it for today's Word Nerd Wednesday. But come back as we wander the wide, wild, wonderful world of words weekly on Wednesdays. I'm going to keep trying to do more. And if there's a word you want to know more about, please let me know by emailing barnabin@theprancingponypodcast.com. For a deeper dive into Tolkien, listen to the Prancing Pony Podcast, folks, my award-winning show with more than 7 years walking through Middle-earth with plenty of Word Nerd Wondery. Please join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Third Age Thursday. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, follow or subscribe in your podcast apps, and follow @Tolkien Times on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.